So, my name is Carrow Brown. I am the co host of AuthorTube News, where we find the news so you don't have to.
And I am Tamara Woods, and Romanslandia is on fire.
Yeah, it sure is. Do you remember when we launched the first episode and I was kind of jokingly excited about doing the Hot Topic episode?
Well, here we are.
I know, right? Like, we're supposed to be on break, y'all. And then, here we are because we can't let this go. There's just too much stuff to do and it just oh god, it just doesn't stop changing. All right, so let's talk about Romance Writers Association and how it is on fire and eating itself alive, and I don't know how it's going to survive. I don't know how it still has people right now. Where do we even start with this? Do we start with the history lesson, Tamara?
Like super brief, super duper brief. Because I think that is kind of interesting when you look at it in perspective of what's happening right now. 1979, an editor by the name of Vivian Stevens and a group of romance writers, they met at a writing conference at the University of Houston. And at the time, there wasn't a group that was for romance writers. And they recognized that just like now, romance writers were treated like second class writers, essentially. So in 1980, these five writers, they grew a group of 37 and they held their first Romance Writers of America group meeting in Houston, Texas. And in June of 1981, they had their first conference. And now this is a national group of over 9,000 members that's representing this industry that's worth over $1 billion, like we talked about in the last episode. Like, romance brings in cash, y'all. This is not a small thing.
Just to make something really clear, listener, before we actually sat down and pushed the record button, Tamara and I were sitting here trying to figure out the best way to kind of talk about this because this story has so many different things to discuss that are involved with it that we could be here for literally days discussing just each different aspect of the shit that's happening. Like, it's so insane.
Yeah, there's a lot of avenues to explore, and there's literally updates every single day. So I think that even when we do our next regular broadcast, we'll probably have to do a small update on this because
It's
this
not going to
isn't
be
just
small. You know it's not going to be small. Like
fingers crossed. Maybe it could be small.
just to let you guys know, in the comments down below in the video description, I actually have a rough timeline of everything that's happened because there's so much that's going on, and we included as many receipts as we could find. Maybe not find them all, but we did our very best. So, um, this whole thing, let's sit back, grab our dolls, get comfy. It's Caro story time, and I'm gonna try and summarize this as best I can. Um, so this all started back actually in August 25th when Courtney Milan, all praise Courtney Milan, came out and she criticized two works done by Susan Tisdale and then another one by Catherine Davis. And she criticized them for the way that they were depicting Chinese women in them. And for those of you who don't know, Courtney Milan is half Chinese. And I went through some of the criticisms while I was doing the research for this, and it was pretty valid. Like, there was some very stereotype stuff that's in there. It was a little, it would like, there were parts of me that were like, ooh, ooh, ooh. And even at the time that they were written, which was back in the 1990s, even like that was because I grew up in that time frame and I was reading books then. Like, even for that time frame, that's still like, ooh, that's no good.
Just to make a point, yeah, they were written in the 90s. However, some of them have been published again in the 2015 area. So
Oh yeah, you're
it's
right.
not like they were left 30 years ago. They were brought back. Just, FYI.
Yeah. So either their editor was tone deaf or they just refused to make changes you guys can decide how you want to do that. But these two authors got butthurt about Courtney's criticism and they filed a complaint against her to the ethics committee. Now, this is where it gets interesting because it says that they filed the complaint with the ethics committee, but they actually sent it straight to RWA staff. And the original members of the ethics community never actually got these complaints, and it was never done through the procedures that they were meant to go through. Actually, what happened is that they made a whole new committee without telling the first committee. like, Like some serious high school crap is going on here. So they did that, and then and again, they did this. They made new members on October 1st, and again, original members are unaware of the complaint. On October 5th, the board gets together to change amendments to how things work. So if something happens, authority to the president-elect and the ED after that. So basically, if something happens, the power to make choices goes to kind of like the next in line instead of there being a vote or anything like that. And this new ethics committee on November 19th has a discussion where they talk about these complaints and then they make a final decision and then it goes up against the board on December 17th after it's been finalized on the 11th, and they go ahead and pass the findings, which results in Courtney Milan being suspended from her membership and has a lifetime ban on holding a leadership position. Now, for those of you who are not aware, Courtney was actually the chair of the ethics committee. And she ended up stepping down from it. But it's so absolutely crazy. And the real shit show starts on December 23rd. And I remember it because I was hanging out in my living room and all of a sudden my cell phone starts to explode from tweets from Courtney Milan because I follow her and I have her on notification. And I'll tell you what, man, if there's one person who can light up Twitter, it's fucking Courtney. She can light that thing up because that's when RWA decided to post the news that they were going to go ahead and sue and censor her for the violations of the code of ethics, and it's just completely crazy. People are coming out of the woodworks. They are sending emails, and all these emails about the inquiries about what's going on are getting the exact same response. I start like messaging Tamara. I'm like, do you see the shit that's going on right now? Like, what is happening? And we're sending like links back and forth of all the stuff that is being dug up. We're talking about like past experiences that people have had with the RWA, some racist encounters. Like it was insane. I don't know what they were thinking when they were like Christmas week. That's a great time to tell Courtney Milan to go fuck herself. Like, what were they thinking? Like, why? I don't even understand.
They were probably thinking that because it was Christmas week that no one was going to be paying attention. Um, they have a very long history of suppressing people's ethics claims. They have a history of suppressing LGBTQ plus members for trying to, or I'm sorry, for LGBTQ plus writers trying to join RWA, suppressing them, saying that they aren't actually writers and they are more publishers than writers, trying to suppress indies initially from joining. RWA has a really long and tattered history. I find interesting just because it was started with a black woman, and then we come to this where the current president elect has in his books, and I've read a couple passages. They're really problematic dis, uh, descriptions of Arab men in a way that was absolutely unacceptable. But this is the person who's leading this charge to uh, essentially suppress Courtney Milan and to push her aside. I think personally that they had received a lot of quote unquote mean girl complaints about Courtney, and they thought that the RWA at large disliked her. I guess they didn't think about how much support she has in the romance community, whether it be from other writers or readers. And they certainly didn't think about how she kind of spearheaded this whole trying to diversify romance writers of America. Like that, she's been definitely spearheading that, and she's been pretty much a watchdog of calling out people who are racist, or whether it's within the RWA or within their writing. So I'm not sure why they expected something less from her.
Yeah, and then the other thing that kind of took me a little bit by surprise is that for about this time last year, when the hashtag copy paste crisis happened, the person who spearheaded that movement was Courtney. Like, if there was one time to see the power that Courtney has, that was definitely the time. And just a quick recap for those of you who may be new, the copy paste crisis involved a woman from Brazil who was caught for cutting and pasting passages from other people's works into her Frankenstein novels, as I like to call them, and basically claiming it as her own work. She copied over 50 authors, 100 books, including two from Nora Roberts, which why you would fuck with her, I don't even know. But she did it, and Nora Roberts went and sued her, but none of that would have happened if Courtney had not stood up and not only brought awareness to it, but organized it, kept updates going. Like, she did not let this rest. She never let it rest. And there were plenty of authors who would actually mention Courtney in their blog posts when they were discussing this. So, like, either the people at RWA just thought that that didn't matter, but plagiarism at such a huge level just didn't matter, and the way that she was able to bring everybody together to do something about it, like like I was telling Tamara off the air, like, if there's one person that I would never screw with, it's Courtney. Like, if Courtney told me to get out of her way, I would sidestep and wait for her to pass before I continue on my way. Like, you don't screw with Courtney, you just don't. But to get us back on track, so all that stuff happens. Christmas was a wonderful time for me. I got to spend time with my family. I got some gifts. I ate some good food. I got to watch tons of drama unfold on Twitter. My family was watching me cackling over my phone later in the evening. It was totally great. And then that was when we start seeing the resignations happen. So the first resignations that happened came from a few members of the original ethics committee, which are Ruby Lang and Misa Soa, if I'm saying that right. So they were the first ones to resign. And then on the 26th, pretty much like, let me count this real quick. 28 that I know of people who held an officer or a leadership position in the RWA resigned on December 26th. So I guess they're really boxing it up on Boxing Day.
And that's not even to include people who have been resigning in local chapters all over the country, including in Houston. Houston had a huge drop in membership and in board members. So it's not just happening in the main RWA proper; it's happening all over the country.
Yeah, and then people were either like canceling their membership fees or requesting a refund. And the interesting thing that happened with that is that the fees, like, the membership was revoked, but not everybody got their fees back. I did not do a follow up on that. Some people did, some people didn't. They're sending angry letters until they get it. On the 26th is also when we start seeing a lot of past stories about the bigoted behavior of the RWA staff is being posted everywhere on Twitter. This includes, well, pretty much everything. Like, there was nothing that was left unturned as far as I could tell. Like, it's horror story after horror story. And we also see a request for the resignation of Damien Sood, who ended up stepping up after the current leader stepped down after this entire thing went on fire. And that's really not the person anybody wanted to have, because he ended up being a lot more problematic. For example, he came out to say that Dreamspinner Press was actually paying their authors, even though we all know that they're not, because the authors are constantly posting updates about how they're still not paid today.
I would like to point out that he is part of Dreamspinner. Isn't he one of their authors?
Yeah, he's got a book coming out next month.
And RWA is normally an organization that is behind their writers and will step in and help them in situations like this. But RWA has been very silent and has not helped with this Dream Spinner situation.
Yeah, they had to get a foot like pressed to their neck about the whole thing for them to lose their good standing. But then after that, it kind of went radio silent, because there's a lot more that needs to happen that when it comes to that. Like, there's supposed to be an investigation that still hasn't happened yet from RWA, so that's going to come back out. And of course, also on the 26th, that's when the New York Post and the Mary Sue started commenting on it, and it was just if you guys go look in there, it's just a huge shit show. It's just insane. Um, let's see. On the 27th, I feel like this should be a song. On the 27th of December.
Let's
Uh,
not do
no, no song. Okay. So on the 27th, for those of you who aren't aware, Courtney Milan happens to be a lawyer. So she's really good about reading rules and regulations and making sure that things are, the way that they need to be. So on the 27th, she posted an excerpt from the ethics code when it came to criticizing other authors on social media, which basically says that you can comment on other authors' work on social media and it's okay, which is exactly what she had this claim against, and they approved it. So I don't know who's in charge of this committee, but you don't read your own damn rules. Like seriously, there should be a quiz or something these people have to take.
It's insane. It's absolutely insane. And as we were going forward, there was more things that were exploding. Like there was claims that um, minority presenters were getting paid less than white presenters at RWA events, whether it was local chapters or nationally speaking. It's just there's so much, so much.
Oh
Oh
yeah.
my god.
Yeah, like one lady did a study. I have to go find it. The study like blew my brain, and it had to do with the winners of the Rita and who got to win. Basically, if you're a white woman and your name is Susan or Barbara, you are guaranteed to win. Like that's what the study showed. Everybody else, like, it just didn't happen. Like,
So in 2017, it became quite apparent that there was this issue with RWA. I think from that spearheaded Courtney to start working with the ethics committee, if I'm not mistaken. They noticed that there was definitely this pattern of people of color not winning. And either not winning or not being allowed to participate in RITA. And RITA is the RWA's award ceremony. It's the most prominent award for English language romance fiction in the US.
okay, I
So,
found the study. I found it. So the study was done by Barrow Fleetfoot, and they basically analyzed the last 20 years of the Reader Awards and talked about who was going to win. And in the last 20 years, only 4% of the average rate of people of color were represented at the Rita, and that's from 1999 to 2019. The winners were 3%, and then the finalists were 4.5%. Yeah, and then here it is again. So again, if you're named Barbara or your name's Susan, you're guaranteed to win. It's like I don't understand why that's a thing. Like maybe somebody who actually like judges these can like explain it to me, or maybe that's the problem itself.
what percentage did it say?
It said that the people who so it said the average rate of people of color represented at the Ritas is 4%. Winners are 3.75% and finalists are 4.5%.
Because according to this number, from 2007 to 2000 to 2017, it's less than 1%.
That might be because it's looking at a bigger data range, because it says that it's looking at from 1999 to 2019. Probably. So that's actually really interesting because if you're looking at a study and you're seeing that if it starts at 2007, it's less than 1%, then that means that back in the 1990s or in the early 2010s, that means that we had more people of color that were actually winning. And then after 2007, RWA just basically said, fuck it, we like Susans and Barbaras.
Wow.
And
And again, Courtney Milan was very much a part of bringing this to light.
yes, I'm really happy that she did too. Oh, God, that's just so terrible. Um, God. So let's see, who else started resigning? There were more resignations. Like people are resigning all over the place, and at the local chapters, at the big chapters, there's lots of posts that are coming out. There's lots of Twitter rants coming out too. There's even more stories on the 27th, and then more show up on the 28th and the 29th. Like it's just never ending. The ones on the one I read, there was a couple I read on the 28th. I think that's when the really ugly ones started to really pop up because people could see that they would be listened to and not told to shush. And on the 29th, there were more stories. This is the one day. Today is December 30th. I have yet to read a horror story about somebody's involvement with the RWA, but it's still early. I still got light in the sky. That will probably change.
And to be fair, I haven't looked so much for it today. Something could have happened by now. We've been looking at this stuff for the last few hours. So,
Yeah, no, yeah, you guys should have seen me like typing up this entire timeline. The one interesting thing about yesterday is that Nora Roberts has weighed in with her comments, and Nora Roberts, queen of all that she surveys, is very to the point with her stuff, and many other authors who are bestsellers were agreeing with her and not condoning the conduct of the RWA. So that is about how many days is that? That's not a lot of days. So December 24th to the 30th. So that's 6 days. 6 days of absolute insanity. James Charles, you have nothing on Romance Writers of Association. You've got nothing.
Nora Roberts isn't part of RWA anymore.
Yeah, she hasn't been for a while, right?
Right. There was an event. She was going to be the MC for Rita, and she ended up rescinding. It was 2005. She ended up not doing it anymore. She backed out 24 hours beforehand because she recognized what a train wreck it was about to be. So, Rita, you're supposed to be awarding authors, recognizing people who have won from the past, et cetera, et cetera. And for some reason, during this ceremony, they decided that it would be appropriate to show video of national tragedies started from 1980 and putting it over a musical accompaniment like "Don't Worry, Be Happy."
What?
Yeah, yeah, that's a real thing. That happened.
Oh my
So
God.
so she decided that she did not want to be a part of that shit show. And I think that that really just speaks to a level of tone deafness. Like you can't have a video of they they agreed with her on this that they couldn't at least include the video of the twin towers falling over "Don't Worry, Be Happy." They took that out, but they kept the rest, and she did not want to be involved with that. How tone deaf and absolutely not reading a room or understanding how your country operates. I was, when I read that, I was absolutely flummoxed. How? Why? What?
This seriously sounds like a high school play gone wrong. Like, I swear to God, you just got like a whole bunch of like 13 to 14-year-olds in a room and said, let's see what we can make happen. Like that oh.
So in 2005, she emailed the then president and was talking about the LGBTQ plus community and how they weren't very well, and still aren't, if we're being honest, integrated into RWA. And the person replied that she should be quiet and, quote Nora Roberts, explained to me, and I'm not kidding, I didn't understand that lesbians would take over RWA. Geez, those terrifying lesbians. After my brain stopped exploding, I emailed back telling her they could publish my letter as written or I would take out a full page ad to publish it. If memory serves, it appears as a letter to the editor in the next issue of the RWR.
So Nora Roberts basically she she pulled out. She didn't want anything to do with it, and she pulled her sponsorship as well. And now here we are. Here we are looking at this like insanity. Like I am so completely baffled, I guess, as a professional because like how did it get to this point? I mean, that's probably a stupid question because they probably just brought in the wrong kind of people and then it rotted from within, or they were doing the mean girl shit and they were just kind of like pushing people into certain cliques, letting them think one thing while they were actually doing another. Like Damon, like I don't even understand how somebody who writes for, who writes for Dreamsprinner, which is supposed to be an LGBTQ plus publisher, how he can write the stuff that he writes but still be okay with his demographic not getting published. Like I would think that he would be one of the people who would come and speak up for that as somebody who is supposed to have some kind of leadership position, but instead he just lets all this racist bigoted shit happen. It like really infuriates me. And then and there's some stuff that's come out about him, not just about like his books. I mean, the stuff he writes in his books is really bad, and I'm a pretty crass person, so if I say it's bad, it's fucking bad. But he lies. Like he went to some interview and talked about how he knew Chuck Tingles, and of course Chuck Tingles found out about this last week, and he posted a huge blog response about how he was a liar and he didn't know him. Like why would you pretend to know famous people if you don't actually know them? Because in this day and age, all somebody has to do is just hear what you say and then they'll come out and autocorrect you. It's not like 20 years ago where you could say, "Oh yeah, I know a famous celebrity," and nobody's going to fact check it because there's no way to get in contact with them. Like, thank you technology for making it so easy to talk to people on the other side of the earth.
I think that's part of the problem with RWA. They have not fully recognized how their organization has changed, how times have changed, how our readership has changed. It's not just about the typical stay at home housewife who is white and reads romances while her husband's at work. It's not the 50s anymore. There's people of all ethnicities, of all genders, and of all sexual orientations that read romances, and they deserve to be represented. That's why there's been the huge push for diversity in literature in general, and in this case, romance specifically. And when you are so tone deaf and when you are so out of touch with your people who should be your people within your community, whether it's the authors or readers, then things like this happens. The thing that is really baffling is that it's not surprising because there's been complaints and they've been ignored for years and years and years. If you go even just through Twitter, you find things of, I remember just last year alone, where people were so upset at how Black authors were being treated at the Ritas. And it was so awful. And these people were so upset. And even then, there was people who decided not to be a part of RWA anymore because they didn't feel like it was a safe space for them. They didn't feel like they were being represented or treated fairly there. And again, Courtney was one of the people in the forefront who was talking about this. She's been a thorn in their side. And they thought that this would be a way to kind of pluck her out, throw her into the stratosphere, and no one would pay attention because they thought that she was a quote unquote mean girl that people didn't like. Well, I think you learned something, RWA.
Yeah, God, this is it's so fucking shameful. Like, I'm so, like, even, yeah, given the origin of the RWA, like, I'm so disgusted with how this has all come to be. And honestly, I hope this shit burns, and I hope it doesn't even be able to reform from the ashes. This needs to be like, this needs to be put down. It needs to be a memory in history, and new things need to come up from it. And I think you mentioned like last week, like at some point, that maybe another group was coming and they were like trying to like talk about it in a Discord, or am I wrong?
There's been rumblings of a couple different groups that people are thinking about starting. I don't have any specifics because the specifics hasn't been given yet. There has been a excuse me, a RWA Discord that's been created so that people can join. And the thing is, y'all, you might not realize this, but the RWA isn't just for romance writers. There's different tiers. So myself, someone who isn't a romance writer, could join RWA and be a part of workshops and get the local support. Because a lot of times there might be a RWA in your location in your area, but there's not other writing groups. So you can join and be part of it. So it doesn't just affect romance writers, it affects all of us. It's a big part of our community in general, just in case you didn't know that. Of course, you might not really want to join it right now.
And and part of the shame, like I went to my local chapters like last month for like, some of the workshops. Those workshops were free, right? Like, it was free for people to attend. I'm sure the presenters were paid. I don't think that they were, well, maybe they weren't. I don't know. But like that has the possibility of going away right now just because of this outdated, bigoted way of thinking how books work. And you guys can, or not you guys, but I mean, this could be spun in a lot of different ways. And I'm sure somebody will come and point a finger at me and saying that I'm closed minded and I just don't understand the large scope of the question or the issue at hand. But here's what I have to say. This was wrong. This was wrong. This was full of nothing but like office place bullying. Everything that was done to make somebody be quiet and to isolate them and to feel like they didn't have anywhere to go. That really upsets me a lot. I have zero tolerance for that bullshit, and I'm just happy that Courtney Milan had the cojones to say fuck that and raise awareness, and now we can put this thing to rest. We can stomp it out. We can show people that this is not okay, and hopefully moving forward, the romance community can come together and basically show that it is the warrior class that it is. Like, you don't fuck with Romancelandia. You just don't.
Did we mention the calls for resignation?
I think I kind of lightly mentioned it, but yeah, no, there's like a whole bunch of who was the first one that did it? Let's see, that was on the 26th. Damon's resignation was demanded by chapter leaders and different members. That was multiple chapter leaders and a lot of different members, so that started coming out.
On the 29th,
Is that it?
the yeah, it's the Cultural, Interracial, and Multicultural chapter of Romance Writers of America. They started a petition to recall or remove all RWA officers. And the thing about that is that RWA is now trying to fight that and invalidate it. I think that they received over 1,600 signatures and support. And,
If they don't comply with this, then they're just not going to have anything. That's literally what's going to happen.
and 1,600 signatures out of an organization that has over 9,000 members. That's a significant portion, you
Yeah.
guys. That's a large number of people.
Yeah, and then there was an open letter that was done by Spark. Was it Romance Sparks Joy? They did one for writers, readers, and librarians, and they did that. The reader one by itself had 1,300 signatures. Right, just the reader one. And you know writers are on that too. A bunch of like the major public libraries also signed on to theirs, and they sent these letters to the RWA. And
And some of the things that they cited was rejected membership application by authors who do not write about cisgender, heterosexual, monogamous, allosexual, Christian, or other characters deemed quote unquote acceptable by these reviewing the applications. Um, Black, Indigenous, and people of color authors being paid less for speaking engagements. Um, Permitted judges to reject or deliberately deflate the scores of Rita nominated works about marginalized individuals, thereby undermining the integrity of the award process. Because here's the thing, y'all. And gosh, I remember this so well from last year. There was a comment that was made, I can't remember by whom, but they had said that if Black authors wanted to win these awards, that they needed to write better books. But it's been found that their scores have been suppressed, so they won't win. It's not from lack of creativity or lack of skill or even lack of Black people writing books, which has also been cited at some point, ridiculous, but it's because it was stacked against them. It was stacked against them. I just want us to take a second to think about what that must feel like. Like myself as a Black woman, as a writer, I can't imagine how it would feel to know that my work is being undervalued so blatantly. And when I try and talk about it, when I try and make a complaint with RWA, my voice is silenced and I'm unheard. That is soul crushing. That's absolutely soul crushing. And this is what the RWA has been doing for years, and it's been going unchecked. And
ugh.
because Courtney Milan had the tenacity and had the knowledge and was fairly fearless in how she presented this information to the public, which was absolutely balls to the wall with no self censorship. Because she did that, she became enemy, and they wanted to get rid of her. And they thought that they found a way to do that. They thought that if they did it, try to do it during Christmas, that no one would discuss it. It would go unchecked and unnoticed. They don't realize the power that Romancelandia has.
Oh, God, this is such a clusterfuck. Like it, like I think it was like on the 25th I had messaged you. It's like this can't get any worse. And then like I'm afraid to say that now because it's just gonna get worse. And at this point, I just want it to go away. I want RWA to go away. It doesn't deserve our loyalty. It doesn't deserve our fees. It doesn't deserve our support. It needs a wake up call because it sits there and it thinks that it can give us some stupid wordy letters about things happened and people got upset and then more things happened and that's going to make us comply. No. If you're listening to me and you're part of this organization, go fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself right now.
I would say that I don't necessarily think that it should just die because I think that the organization does have good things to offer. I think that what it needs is an absolute 100% change in the leadership. We need to have people who aren't just, you know, part of a marginalized group but don't really care about their group. Like, we need people who care and are willing to listen, are willing to work for their authors, for their readers, because that's what we're here for. We're here for people to feel love and joy and to read books that make them happy and to give them a happily ever after. And how can writers truly write that happily ever after when they are so miserable about being part of this organization? Like, we're being hurt on so many levels, and it's time for RWA to make a change. It can't go on this way anymore. It's enough. It's enough. We've done this long enough. What else is going to have to happen before actual change occurs?
So on that note, what do you guys think about the situation? What are your thoughts? What are your opinions? And again, I think I've only talked about 60% of everything that's happened. Again, down in the video description, there's a rough timeline of things that have happened along with links, so that way you can go and just watch this shit show unfold. Um,
And we'll be adding links as we find them. And I really appreciate everyone who has given me links and has given me information and has sent it to me and has tagged us and sent it to our Twitter. I appreciate you. Please keep doing it so that you can help us to have more eyes and ears on the situation, because it's big and it's not going to get any smaller anytime soon.
Yeah, I wish we had a book that was coming out to talk about. That would be a nice way to end this. But I really don't think a situation like this should have a jovial ending. I really encourage you guys to think, review the facts, and then feel free to share your thoughts and opinions on this. Like we said, it's absolutely insane, and it's probably not going to get any better. I don't know how they're going to get the faith and the trust and the loyalty back from Romancelandia. I think that's going to be a really steep hill for them to climb, but if they can do it, I'll tell you what, man, I'll join and throw in a member fee, but not until I see. I need justice. Okay, I need some fucking justice, y'all.
Well, Carrow is always bloodthirsty. I
Stab.
just want stab, stab. I just want things to go the way they should be. And this is not how it should be at all. And I think that we've made our feelings quite clear. So, again, in the comments, tell us yours. Are we going to be back with a new episode next week? Like when we said we were going to be?
Yeah, we're gonna come back next week. Regular episode. Maybe some happy stories. Send me some happy stories, guys, because I need one after this clusterfuck.
My gosh. Happiness. Also, there are going to be a link in the description. Let us know, our dear writers, if you have a new book coming out, because we want to spread your joy.
Yep, all the joy, all the happiness. We need an uplift after the last week. Christmas was supposed to be happy and jolly, and it was infuriating at the same time. Uh,
Yeah, I spent my Christmas really angry, and then I drank a lot of wine.
oh, me
So,
too. Twinsies.
aw, I was in Hawaii, you were in Florida, but we were together in the heart.
We
All
were.
right, you guys. Happy New Year, everybody.
Yeah, have a happy new year. Please drink responsibly. Please come back from whatever party you may or may not go to this weekend, so that way we can keep sharing all this wonderful news with you. I'm gonna done being sound like a public service announcement person. I hope you all have a good week, and I will talk to you all again real soon.
Cheers.